So if you had the chance to run away and join the band The Attractions with Elvis Costello, would that be what you do? Or would you stick around and forge a career and build your family and build a life about it? But what would you do eventually? Would you come back to music? We're going to meet today Gavin Davies. Now he's stepped out now from behind the drums, put himself in the center to present his songwriting, his singing, his guitar playing, and music production as well. So it's my great delight to present to you today the music of Gavin Davies.
We can be free of these chains and belong again.
Welcome to Indie Over 50. Where in the world do we find you today?
Well, today, John, I'm in Sutton Coldfield, which is in not far from Birmingham, and that's where I am.
I could have been confused. It could have been Abbey Road, but we might come back to that story. That's the one I can see the sign just behind you there with Abbey Road. Now, a question I ask for every Indie Over 50 artist, because it's a challenge, because we grew up listening to the awesome stars of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Who is your favorite artist of the 21st century?
I mean, obviously Ed Sheeran. Most of the bands that I love, I like from a little bit further back than that. You know, as I said, Crowded House.
And I love the fact that you're talking about Ed Sheeran, another singer, songwriter, guitarist. And tell me, when you were getting into music, what was the first thing you ever spent your money on?
2 rototoms, if you remember what rototoms are.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But it was a 18-inch rototom and a 22-inch rototom. Absolutely huge they were. And they were the ones that yeah, exactly. They were the ones you could spin and tune. Really, they were cool. So I bought those from a shop in Birmingham and never really thought how I was going to get them home. On the bus. I had to walk about 2 miles to get to where I wanted to hop onto the bus. I'd already done the research, and they'd been there for some time, and I'd been saving up my money for these 2 rototoms. Ran up in my lunch hour, brought them back to work, and then thought, how the hell am I going to get these on the bus? So it was fun. And there was a stand. It wasn't a light stand. It was a proper double-braced, heavy stand as well with it.
They were. The Rototoms were always those big stands. And as you say, you got the biggest of the biggest. I don't know they ever went that high. You know, I often recall the Rototoms as being the ones before the standing
That's right.
toms.
Yeah, exactly. These were rare. And when I actually got them home and started using them, they were just like timpani.
Well, that's a great story about that investment. Tell us about how and when you got into music, Gavin.
Well, I was 8 years old, and my father knew that I was interested in music. And so they bought me for my 8th birthday a clarinet. So nothing drum related. My father's a drummer. He was quite a good drummer, as it were, and quite well known in the scene. He's also mentioned in a magazine in Birmingham called Brumbeat as the guy that founded a band called the Starliners. There's music in the family. And so I started playing clarinet. I don't know whether I liked the clarinet. I think I liked the sound it made, but I wasn't very good at reading the music. I couldn't really read, but I could hear. So I used to get the tutor, as it were, or teacher, to play the song first. If he played it, then I could remember it, and then I could just basically play it that way. So I just followed the notes up and down, didn't really know what they were. And that's sort of potentially an ADHD thing that I didn't know I'd got at the time. And I'm not even sure I knew that we're sure that I've got it now, but it's very probable. This business does tend to, I don't know, attract slightly wacky people, doesn't it?
Neurospicy is the expression I heard today, and but there's so much more known about ADHD now.
Yeah, I think anything like that with an acronym, I've probably had it or got it or, you know. So if you just label the lot, I'll probably be okay. I'm a bit OCD when I record, you know, and OCD in the house, sometimes. I got to grade 6 on the clarinet, and I never quite got to the end of grade 8. I don't remember, or did I? So I moved straight. So I put that on one side, the clarinet, and then got a classical guitar and started having to play with the classical guitar, acoustic guitar, bit of lead guitar, started following Hank Marvin. My dad didn't really want me to be a drummer because he'd had some iffy experiences with the music business. But I wanted to have a go at drums. So I started playing drums at 16 after trying bass guitar, lead guitar, rhythm guitar, acoustic guitar, classical guitar, a whole lot. I got, really very bad versions of all of them, really cheap versions of all those. A bass guitar was horrific to play. You'd just slice your fingers apart. The strings were so cheap. You know, I think the value of the guitar, the bass guitar, was more than the value of restringing it, you know,
Why would you
at the
restring a
time.
bass guitar?
I know exactly, but the strings on it, oh God, they were just like razor wire. I really had unbeknowing started the drums at a very early age, really, because of my dad, and the kit was there, so I could always set it up in the garage and have a play. And I had lessons at 16. I was taught by an incredibly good drum teacher called Mal Garrett, and he was a go-to drum teacher at the time. And a good friend of mine, Mr. Ian Palmer, who's the nephew of Carl Palmer, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Um, he went to the same drum teacher at the same time, because I remember seeing him coming out of the lessons, and he was very, very young. I only had 6 months of lessons on the drums. Between me and Mal, we basically said, well, he said, I've taught you all I know. You're a bit of a fast learner, and you need to just go out and get into a band now. And that's unknown now, isn't it?
Yeah, they keep you
People
on the whole
people just,
program.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
Keep you on the
yeah.
program.
No one's going to say I've taught you all I know now, Gavin. So carry on.
No, it's we'll book you
And
up for the next
right,
session at the beginning of next year, and then the next term, and
that's it. Yeah, so I went and did loads of auditions. I played with quite a few bands. My first band was called Shell Shock, which was like a metal heavy rock band, and I really hated it. It was awful because, yeah, well, mainly because I was using my dad's drum kit. So my dad's
ooh,
drum kit was from a dance band. Yeah.
beautiful.
So this was like, it was a beautiful drum kit, granted, but it was all single brace stands, and if you remember that the sort of the shaft of the cymbal stand would come down to like legs that just went out straight. There was no sort of bracing or anything. Yeah. So if you're in a heavy metal band, I went off and thought, I'm going to need a ride cymbal. So I got a 20-inch ride, put it on one of these stands, and halfway through a gig, I hit it. It fell over, caught the top of the bass guitarist, his neck, and took the bass guitarist out as well, which was quite, yeah, it was exciting if I remember rightly. The bass guitarist wasn't overly happy. I actually found the playing really easy, isn't it? At that time, we hadn't got into too much of the double bass drum style of it, where it's all sort of where everybody's going bananas with bass drums. Then I got in with this guy that was I think he'd got a massive house. It was like a stately home, and he'd got a huge recording studio as well. And he was really into progressive rock. So he got me in to do some recording, and the previous drum kit from the previous guy was still set up in his studio. And so I made one huge drum kit out of my drum kit and this drum kit. I must have had like 8 toms. So I got an 8 and a 10 and a 6, actually. I think I'd got a 6 and an 8 and a 10. And it went all the way down to like a 20-inch, 22-inch sort of floor tom. And I think I had about 15 cymbals, and it really looked the part. And I'm like sort of, having a real good old drum, but we never really did anything. So he never really recorded anything. He just asked me to keep coming along, and he'd play along with his keyboards. So I think he was just practicing. And he then said to me, I think, "Oh, we've got to go on the road now." And I said, "Well, I can't go on the road. Not really." "Oh, well, okay, fair enough. That's all right." So we sort of parted ways. I was still doing my studenty thing, with electronics. I started writing songs when I was 14, really. So,
But here you are, you've got the DNA of the drums, the very early influence, adopting the instrument. Clearly, it's something you excelled in because you graduated within 6 months of your teaching program on drums. You're now a professional level drummer. You've got options. So tell us about that story, because there's a bit of a sliding doors moment here. Do you pursue your studies and a career, or do you pursue a life on the road as a drummer?
well, being behind the drums for me was a lot easier than even considering or thinking about getting out front. Even though I think even at that early age, sort of 17, I think I was when this all sort of kicked out. I'd had a year of rehearsals. I'd played drums all my life without knowing it, as I said. And then some of the opportunities arose. Some good auditions, some auditions with high-faluting people. And, I worked out at that time that I really wanted to be a vocalist and a singer. So I went to an audition with the guys from Elvis Costello. So Elvis Costello was a band, as you've probably heard, with the Attractions. Now, 2 of the Attractions were from my area. They were from my local area. And they wanted to go and form a band. Elvis had already thought about going over to America to do sort of a country thing, you know? I don't know when this was. It must have been 70s, late 70s, early 80s or something. It's easy to work out because I was 17. I did the audition. They asked me to come back, and I played with them for hours. We were having a real good session. I went home, didn't really hear a lot from them straight away. And then I got a phone call and said, "Right, are you ready? Ready to join?" I went, "Yeah, I'd like to join. Yeah, that'd be good. The Attractions. But we're going to America." I said, "I can't go to America." um, I'm in the middle of my HNC in electronics, and I'm 17. Blah blah. I mean, both are a once in a lifetime opportunity in a way. I know you can do electronics later on in life, but my father had instilled into me the secondary career as the key and most important part of the music business is a way out. One of the things that I've found, even with some of the real high profile session musicians, they can't really fund their lifestyle with just session musicianing unless you work every hour of every day. You're just not going to get as much as, let's say, for instance, an airline pilot could, you know? And a lot of musicians had got second careers that were almost primary careers, really. And then they did their music in the background. Well, I couldn't do that. and go for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or however long the tour was to America. Even though I was frightened to death 90% of the time with my anxiety, I actually said to these two guys from the attractions, I said, "What are you're going to America and you're going to try and do country music?" And they went, "Yeah, that's what we do, and that's what Elvis he's done that. We'll do it." I said, "They'll just throw bottles at you and you'll be back within a week." And as far as I remember, they didn't last very long over there and decided to change project ideas, and they did come back. So it was a really easy decision to make. I wanted to have a career in electronics. I'd absolutely love taking things to pieces. None of my friends can understand or could understand at that time how I could have an equal love for electronics as I could for music. The problematic thing is loving two things equally.
I think you touched on a couple of interesting concepts there. First of all, really informing advice from your father's experience. And to this day, in my association with younger musicians and young artists, emerging artists, it's hard to find any that can be a full-time musician, certainly in Australia. And then I think the second thing you mentioned is that love, that passion that you share, doesn't need to be binary. It's not on or off for music or technology in your case. It can be equal parts because, I love technology as well. And I love it's just part of the package of creativity for me. I think that fact that there's a DNA in you that can love those two passionate opportunities, creativity and technology.
That's it. And as you well know, John, they cross over massively, especially if you do sound engineer, and that is my absolute love, is engineering, recording, mixing. And I used to do that with other people, you see. So one of my very first recording experiences was at Ronnie Scott's, and there's an 18-piece big band, and a friend of mine said, "Can you record them?" And I went, "Yeah." So I went off and bought, at the time, microphones that I could afford. But I went and it's a big flat plate PZM. I've still got them in the garage lurking around somewhere. I bought 6 of them and stuck them, so I taped them to the wall of the venue, and then put front mics in front of people for soloists and things. I'd got a Boss 16-track mixer, so I'd got all these microphones plugged into that, and I'd had for a week or two an Iowa DAT recorder. So
Yeah,
one of the first ventures into digital audio tape.
that's top
So
notch.
I'm
Yeah.
recording this. That's it. So I'm recording straight from these microphones, straight into it, and it's got a parametric equalizer, so it got decent control over the sound. And I'm live mixing. He's a very famous trumpeter now, and I recorded him at Ronnie Scott's. But I didn't know I was recording. He wasn't a famous trumpeter when I was recording him, and it was called the Battle of the Bands. So they'd got the Midland Youth Jazz Orchestra. It's a very well-known jazz orchestra in the world, really, to be fair, not just the Midlands. And then this other band called Svengali. Now, my friend run this band called Svengali, and I recorded it, sent it to my friend, and it got played on our local radio. So that
Mm.
was my first experience in recording. So it was cool. It was very, very cool.
Onto the DAT, it would have been stereo. It wouldn't have been multi-channel. It would have
Yeah.
been a stereo capture,
Oh,
no
no.
post-production opportunity.
No, it's literally live as you're with it. So, when the trumpeter started coming in, I had to very gently move the slider up. I made sure everything was lower than it needed to be, and you just brought it up really slowly so it didn't stand out too much.
Even that observation of that attenuation that you applied as an untrained engineer,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
that's clearly, a natural capability that you've built in that context?
Well, you see, being an electronics fan and loving electronics and not being a particularly wealthy person, I had to buy secondhand gear and fix it. So my first recorder that I bought was a Yamaha MT44, which was a cassette recorder. I don't know how many of them actually worked, to be fair, because they'd got some really, really nasty inherent problems with the switches inside them. So you literally had to strip them all completely apart and directly solder them all in and then clean all the switches. They were all mechanical switches. So I loved doing that. And then I got it came to me with one channel, one track. And after a few hours of working, I'd got 4 tracks. On a cassette tape, you used to be able to turn a cassette tape over and play the other side. Well, with a 4-track recording cassette tape, you record on all of the 4 tracks simultaneously down. So you're recording on the reverse side and the front side at the same time. I don't know how the Beatles managed it with 4 tracks. They had some amazing engineers.
So let's talk about your career. So we know we've touched on, how you've engaged around music. We've touched around the choices you needed to make. We've talked about your passion for technology. How have you carved out your career, and where does your career stand today?
Well, I like a term that a friend of mine is David Mindel. He wrote some songs for Olivia Newton-John and all sorts of people like that. He did the Maxwell House advert. He did adverts for all sorts of high-fluting bits and pieces in the 70s. And he says he's semi-required, not semi-retired. So electronics, loved electronics. Started my own company as an electronics repair. I used to repair tape video recorders, televisions, all sorts of stuff like that. Then I started to move on to digital camcorders and camcorders. Like literally when you take one of those to pieces, you've got 200 or 300 bits all the way around you, and you've got to remember where they all go. So, and I absolutely loved doing that. So repaired those, got to a point where prices came so low that people stopped repairing items. So I moved into a slightly different area of repair I did some musical instruments. I did amplifiers, mixing desks. I rewired a 24-track the mixing desk once, put all new pots in it and new everything's, and moved into sort of higher quality audio, Bang & Olufsen. However, even those started to become into the price limit where things weren't quite, worth spending the money on, when they could just go and buy the latest model. So I got into computers. And it was an easy transition. Computers were absolutely a doddle compared to electronics. At that time, I mean, we're talking like really old computers. I was very lucky that I went straight to work for Rolls-Royce Aerospace. So I was repairing Western Digital terminals, Pericom terminals, still down to component level. So I was still doing electronics in the computer world. To cut a long story short, opportunity arose to get into a small company as an engineer, as a reasonably paid engineer. I built my way up to that. We ended up with 18 employees. I bought half the company, then I bought the whole of the company. And then when we were sort of at the peak, we was at the peak just before I bought, then the 2008 crash occurred. Everything went down the pan. Almost immediately sales stopped for IT.
Yes.
We struggled through that. Something else happened, which I don't really want to go into, but I got prostate cancer at the time. And a couple of engineers took advantage of that and tried to steal my customers. Yeah, which was fun. And so we shut it all down, opened up another small company, and it's just me and my family now, me and my family and one really trusted employee. And so I'm semi-retired. We've got some lovely customers, and we concentrate on the small number of customers and do an exceptionally really good job. And all the loyal customers that were with me in my 25, 22 years with the other previous company, which I owned at the end of the day that we shut down, went, Gavin, we'll go with you. Where are you going? Fine. So we just moved over and we got all the nice customers, whereas the two lunatics that ran away to the asylum got all the customers that were interested in price hacks.
Congratulations. I mean, you've had to face the adversity of on multiple fronts there, the challenge of the GFC, the health challenge. It's not unusual that we get to India over 50 without having faced these moments, and finally to deal with that um, business challenge, shall we say, and to reform.
Yeah.
Really powerful lessons, I think, from a business perspective on how you've embraced and adopted and adapted to those circumstances. So all power to you.
Thanks, John.
That's the joy of India over 50, right? We do bring life experience to our pursuit and passions today, but it's informed by, the great achievements and successes and passions of our lives, and also the challenges and the adversities that we've had to overcome as well. And that's a great thing. It provides perspective. So let's share the story of today with your music and your songwriting, and share about how you've got into writing and sharing, performing, releasing your own music, Gavin.
Okay. So let's go back to a frightened little sort of kid in bedroom with guitar and writing songs. I wrote loads of songs, mostly just the lyrics. I just remembered the music because I didn't know what chord. Well, I knew some basic chords, but I didn't really play in the way, in a usual way. I was very percussive with the guitar. So I treated it a little bit like a drum. I wanted to get on a stage and I wanted to play my songs to people, and I wanted people to listen to them and think whether they were, and get some feedback. Every time I thought about doing it, the fear and proper clinical level anxiety kicked in, you see, and I've suffered with anxiety for all my life. You can't really ever overcome anxiety, you just cope with it. It depends on what type of anxiety it is. If it's something that's just suddenly appeared, you can generally sort that out. But I've had it all of my life and it's never gone away. And it's always caused friction in my own head more so than anyone else's. So I knew I couldn't do that. I'm sort of 17, 18 or thereabouts when I'm playing the drums thinking, do you know, I could probably do what these guys are doing. I'm sure I could act through it and be exactly what anyone wanted, and play the guitar but are my songs any good? Is my voice any good? Is my, and you get into that sort of downward spiral of, are you any good? And that's the confidence battle you have, isn't it, with yourself? To be asked by someone like that gave me a bit of a confidence boost, granted, but it was only, it was this much like positivity in my head, a tiny little bit of positivity. So I put them on a back burner, never let anybody listen to them. Apart from the odd person in the family that, and everyone that did listen to them that might be family was like, oh, they're okay, they're good. There's no like, these are absolutely brilliant. It's just a general standard family response, that don't understand my music. And only so many people will understand your music. Wherever you are in the world, this is a good thing for anyone in the India over 50. There is somebody that will love your music somewhere. There's billions of people out there. someone will like it, and this is where we can get hung up sometimes, is thinking too much about whether it's any good or whether it's not. And I see this advertisement in a paper looking for artists to work with. So I phoned this guy up, had a good chat to him. Happened to be Paul Carrick's guitarist. Now, Paul Carrick was from Mike and the Mechanics, if you remember. He was from Squeeze. He was the keyboard player with Squeeze. Yep. And a lovely chap called Chris Garfield, who had also played with Jimmy James and the Vagabonds. So he was a 70s sort of star, and he'd got with the 70s, and he was on Top of the Pops in the 70s. Absolutely amazing lead guitarist. And he wanted somebody to work with as a vocalist and a songwriter because he didn't write songs himself. I went along to be interviewed by him at a local pub. I got literally stuck on the motorway, and I'm late to this thing. My, massive opportunity, I thought, and it was really, but and I'd got stuck on one carriageway. I couldn't get there. Couldn't phone him up in those days. I mean, hands-free wasn't really something that Anyway, I had no way of phoning because I was, whatever. I got there late and was panicky and all, wound up and sort of in my usual anxious sort of state, which nobody seems to notice because I'm always like this. And yeah, this is it, you see. And had a good chat. We started working together. 5 years. So for 5 years, we had this thing called the Audio Kings. And there's still some material out there from the Audio Kings that we put together. We put something called Rock Lullabies, and they were normal songs. We used this fabulous lady singer. We put those together. But whether it was the thing that we wanted to do, I'm not really too sure. But so what Chris would do is I would do my writing. I'd do a bit of writing. I'd got probably about 100 songs lurking around that I'd written over the years, so I'd just pass the odd one out to him. He would fettle them because he'd got a degree in music production. So he'd put it through his system, sort it all out, send it to me. I'd listen to it. I'd go, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be blown away because they weren't necessarily what I'd got in mind for the songs. I was very acoustic orientated, and yet he was from the 70s, brought up, and well, actually, he was king of the road as a lead guitarist in the 70s. And it did sort of sound a little 70s biased. And for me, being an 80s child, it didn't rock my boat massively, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every minute of it working with him. So we went to Abbey Road with another band. Now, it was all connected with Paul Carrick in the end because Paul Carrick's son was playing cajon for the band that I wrote a song for. Now, I wrote a song with Chris's assistance. So we wrote a song for this band. I won't name the band. They're still going, but there's no real point to naming them. I realised on that very first visit to Abbey Road, where I paid for everything, and, it's not a cheap place to go and record at. And I ended up with about 45 minutes to 50 minutes at the end of the day to have a bit of a bash with some of my stuff. And I thought, go on then. I was so worn out through the day because I was actually playing cajon for them because Jack Carrick, Jack Carrick, you see, who did Paul Carrick's son, who's a percussionist and drummer and brilliant, had left the band by then. So they sort of needed a percussionist. So I stepped in to do the percussion. at Abbey Road. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, but it'll do. I'll be all right. I'll be fine. So I did. We managed to do okay. When I looked at the results of that day, and I sat down and scrutinized everything that we'd recorded, because we'd spent 95% of the time with this band. My 5% of the day was 100% more productive. I did one take of every one of the songs that I did. I hadn't even rehearsed them, not properly. And I just did one take of them, sang them straight through the microphone, did the harmonies, if there was any harmonies, like in one take as well. And I walked into the room, and like there's people just sitting there like going, how did you manage that? And I'd never really, I've been recording myself since I was a teenager, never letting any of it get out. So I knew what the process was, and I'd got over the anxiety with the day full of the other band. You know, oh no, we'll do another take. Oh, we'll do another take. We'll do another take. With 50 takes. No, it wasn't quite that many, but it felt like it. We were doing 10 takes of one of the tracks, and I want to play this again. And so, it was purely because of their critical eye or critical ears, which I actually commend them with that, you know, to actually keep going and going at doing it till you get the preferred result. But for me, even though we spent all that time recording it, we had some issues that there was nothing we could do about. And that was because we'd chosen to record in a single environment. So basically, there's one room, 2 vocalists, guitars and everything, recording as if it's a performance. So we're at Abbey Road. We spent a fortune at Abbey Road, and we're recording with no way to edit them afterwards.
No
'Cause there's
separation.
so
You had
much-
spill all over. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd got the same vocalist that Chris and I had worked with, and the overspill from her voice because she'd got a show voice. So I've got a powerful show voice if I want to. Yeah. But I've also, if I want to power through, but that's not the way I sing. That's not the way I sing with my songs. I sing gently. I mean, I can sing pretty much however I want to, from reggae to anything, but someone's got to tell me what they want me to sing. You know what I mean? I can't make that decision for somebody else's song. And I've unfortunately got, or fortunately, whichever way you see it, quite an adaptable vocal that I can sing pretty much any style that I want to. But if I don't know what someone, you know, it's a difficult one to work with, to know what to do with that. So anyway, so the recordings came back, and the only ones that sounded reasonable were my ones, really. And so the sound engineer was like, well, why don't you do some of your stuff? You know, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. And quite right, I still can't. I can't do that. So I've done one gig in my life where it's just me and a guitar, you know, and I've got Jack Carrick, Paul Carrick's, and Chris. So Chris was playing lead guitar. I think Jack Carrick was playing percussion, and we did it at the Joint Stock, which is a place in Birmingham in the UK. I did one gig, I did 2 songs, and I was so frightened that you got about 20% vocal performance and 10% guitar. But they liked it, they said, so, you know, this is okay. On to today. So that was my training ground with Chris. I then had another 5 years of a training ground with my friend Ian Palmer. He set his drum kit up just there, and I worked together with Ian, recording his drums, doing all sorts of stuff, following around with him when he was like down in studios talking to people from Take That, with Coldplay playing in the next room. I mean, he's from drumming royalty, basically, Ian, being the Emerson, Lake and Palmer band. His both uncles are probably some of the best drummers ever, really. And Ian was a drumming virtuoso when he was 12.
Wow.
Just crazily good. Absolutely amazing drummer. So he sat in there and I used my engineering skills and we started working on some songs with ourselves, started working with some vocalists, one vocalist from The Voice UK came in here. So, and then I had a nervous breakdown. So I couldn't cope with the pressure. It proved to me that I cannot cope with the pressure of doing these sort of things when there is pressure involved. So I rethought it through, thought about what I was doing with myself, thought about working with everybody else. I enjoyed that, but the pressure was too high for me to work with other people.
Where do you think that pressure was coming from? Where do you think that pressure was coming from?
Myself. It
Mm.
wasn't coming from them, it was coming from myself. See, everything that I do, whether it be electronics, whether it be computers, whether it be music, whether it be drumming, whether it be whatever, I'm not satisfied without it being 120%. And that really is quite tiring to be at that level, to sort of, whether it actually ends up at that level, I can't judge that. I can't judge whether my music is good or bad or whatever. I can't. I just put my 100% into it and then go. And my levels of quality lately, I've been letting it go a bit more because I'm feeling more relaxed. So this fabulous thing called YouTube appears. I knew about it, but you'd never really thought how to use it. Or would it be any good in the music environment? Don't know. So anyway, so I'd thought about that. I shelved the YouTube thing and got in touch with an amazing company called One Media Music, and they are actually in Goldfinger Avenue at Pinewood Studios. And we'd started working with them with Chris Garfield, and we'd done this album. As I said, the album was like rock lullabies, which is out there and is quite good actually. It's quite a good album
And
that
we'll
we
put
did.
the links below
And I said,
to those
yeah, you
recordings as
can,
well.
yeah. Audio Kings, yeah. And I spoke to the people down there who are just fabulous and lovely. And they said, well, do you want to release some of your music? And I went, okay. So, so I recorded some of my stuff, sent it down there. They put it out. That was my debut album or debut album, whatever you call it. And it was nice to hear my own music on, Spotify and Amazon Music and Apple Music. And it was weird to think, I've not let anyone listen to this and then it's just appeared. But nothing much happened. And we can actually talk about, not now, but maybe it's very much what you talk about in your Indie Over 50 is, you can release music to the world. Anyone can release music to the world, but no one's going to find it unless you market it. And the marketing is absolutely 100% key. You just don't go anywhere unless you market it. Doesn't matter how good you are. There's only one exception in my book, and that is if you are very rich. If you're very, very rich, like Taylor Swift or other musicians, you can go and buy a recording studio like her father did for her, and then promote all of her music, promote it all in Nashville, spend thousands and thousands of pounds on production material, videos, stuff, whatever it is. And then if there's a modicum of talent, just you're going to take off. If you put loads of money behind someone, you've got, number one, you've got to be attractive, tick. You've got to be able to play the guitar, tick. You've got to be able to sing, tick. Once you've got onto that, once you've got onto that thing, then the rest is up to you. Now,
Yes.
Taylor Swift got very, very, very popular very quickly. Now, you look at Ed Sheeran, who's had to sit there for years and years and years playing little clubs, he hadn't got loads of money. He built it up from his pure talent, raw talent. So that's the only two ways it happens, isn't it? 1, 100% commitment. 2, spend money.
I think money, I think you're right about the money, and there's many examples that you've said, but you're right. I don't think it's a sustainable success unless the core talent, let alone those other skills and X factors are there. But I think for true talent with grit and grind, Ed Sheeran's a great example. Billie Eilish is a great example. But that whole idea of you put this amazing song out on SoundCloud and then it blows up overnight, which appears to be the origin story of Billie Eilish. And again, irrespective of any money underneath or supporting her, pure talent just shines through. It may not be your cup of tea, but
Amazing.
you cannot deny
No, it
her
is. It
talent.
very much is. I could have added her to my 2000 list of people that I think I quite like. And Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish.
Look, I think we've touched on this amazing experience, being in the halls of Abbey Road, releasing your new and original music, but you've also got this new frontier of YouTube. So you talk about you've only ever done one gig, you've only, that whole anxiety about presenting in public, and yet you've embraced engaging audiences, not only from Spotify and Amazon, but on YouTube. So tell us about how that's worked for you and how that's different for you to be able to embrace
Well,
being naked as you are,
I think
singing your own songs on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I can get on stage as somebody else. So I used to sing with 3 big bands. It wasn't me. It didn't feel like me. So I'd get up and do that. Amateur dramatics, I've played leads in various other things. It frightened the hell out of me doing it, but it was therapy for me because I'm not me. So the big problem I've got was with putting my own material and being me, Now, I've always loved playing with video, always loved doing that, but I didn't want to be on this side of the camera, So I'd be videoing other people, and from way, way back from when a Betamax video recorder worked, I used to video people and stuff like that. So after the release of my second album, which was again recorded at Abbey Road, and I had 2 days down at Abbey Road, and we met Ashley Campbell as well down there, who's Glenn Campbell's daughter. She wanted to come and have a look in Abbey Road. We're there for 2 days, come in, so Ashley Campbell sort of turns up, rocks up. Luckily we're not playing because I think I might have had an episode. Right. Yeah, a bit of a nervous episode. And we were just listening back in the main room, and she's like sitting there going, and tapping her feet and whatever. Went down to the bar and had a bit of time. Anyway, so we recorded down there. We had a fabulous time. After the end of the 2 full days of recording, we did 13 songs. We recorded 13 songs, and and again, the studio engineer said to me, well, you're going to need an hour to do the backing vocals, aren't you? I said, no, I'll do them now. So I did 1 take on every one of the backing vocals, and we got all those done in 1 take. And then I thought, well, hang on, we've got half an hour. So I recorded a few Beatles songs as well while we were down there. And then at the end of that, we decided to go and see Ashley Campbell play in London. So we're like, like this, totally wrecked, because we've spent a whole day at Abbey Road and God knows what time it is. And then we decide to go down to see her play. And then I drive back to Birmingham, which is
Wow.
And so I get to that sort of point, that's released, and then I start watching some YouTubers. And I think I actually watched one of the YouTubers that you quite like, Bob the Mariner, is it? Or Rob the Mariner? And a few other YouTubers. And I don't know, I just thought, I'm going to give this a go. And the way that, as I've said, you've worked this out over the time of the interview, that I like to do things as best as I possibly can. So we're looking at YouTube, and I worked out, I looked at channels like yours, Indio 50. I think I found you later on though. And there's a lot of people on YouTube sort of, you're not part of this selling the dream. You're giving the reality, which I like. That's really cool. But there are also, well, you are, but there are also a lot of other channels that are really attempting to wind people up to do something, and they are clickbait. Like, you should be on YouTube, and how to do this on YouTube, and one fix for YouTube, and how to do that, and I got drawn into all of those. And well, one good thing came out of it, and that is that I started my channel, but I realized I've got to try and release 2 videos a week. I can't say one way or another whether it's working, whether it isn't working, but because my subscriber count is still quite low. But I know that it's only one video, just one video will go potentially bang, and then you'll get 1,000 subscribers from one video. It could easily happen. And I'm sure there's a load of old fogies like me out there that likes older style music. I didn't really like doing covers. I never did like doing covers. But to attract people that like good music, you have to do cover songs. You've got to. It's the only way to attract people into your music. And as long as your music is similar to some of the cover songs that you're doing, you're likely to generate some more people. I love doing that. I enjoy talking to the camera. It's not natural to me, but I'm getting there slowly. I think it's slowly getting easier to do.
Well, what we'll do is we'll add the links below. And I think one of the things I love about your channel is you've taken a variety of different approaches. So sometimes you're presenting the song, an original or a cover. Other times you're stripping back and saying, this is how I've approached this song. Sometimes, even rehearsing it. Sometimes we're taken into a quite interesting film clip approach versus other times it's you straight in front of the camera. So I think there's a whole way
Yeah.
of how you've engaged audiences. Sometimes it's a review of an piece of equipment. But we'll have the link below so that people can follow your channel and discover your music as well. For Gavin, your advice for indie over 50 artists, what would that be?
Oh, right. Well, it's not difficult for indie over 50s. I think really the world's your oyster with, if you've got to 50 and you are, I would use the term successful, in your existing career, but focus on what you want to do rather than what you think everybody else wants. Because I find I can see a lot of failing YouTubers that are attempting to do something they think that will be successful instead of just focusing on what they actually love. I mean, I'm lucky that I can actually produce from start to finish the music. It's taken 40 years of work. It's not something that happens overnight to be able to record your own voice, record your drums, and record all the instruments that you need to do to create a track. It's not easy. And that, for me, comes out of frustration because I wanted to work with the top-notch people. I got the opportunity to work with top-notch people, and I couldn't mentally hack it. So I quite frustrated with that I was in a position where I could do that, but it was too much pressure. So I have to suffer my own bass guitar playing because I like the lack of pressure. You know, I can sit there for half an hour to an hour and learn a piece and play it, and I'm all right. My acoustic guitar is average at best sometimes, and I can do that as well. The vocals has always been the thing that I love doing the most, and so everything else that I do has been based on doing the vocals. And what I'm trying to say to indie over 50 artists is try and collaborate as well, because if you're not hit by the pressure bug that I am, then you will go further getting collaborations with people than you will just on your own. Now, like John, you write songs and you openly admit you don't really want to be singing those songs sometimes. But your gift's writing the songs and the guitar work, the music, some of the production side of it, all of those things that you've got those amazing skills with. But yeah, you know what you're doing best. You know what the best side of you is. And you think, well, hang on, I've written this song. Did I write it for my voice? No, I didn't. So I want somebody else's voice to do that. And there's so many voices out there. There's so many people that could work with people. And another piece of advice to anyone indie over 50, as it were, don't expect to make any money from it.
Oh, wow. That's a zinger, but it's so true. It's really, really important, actually. In fact, I've been approached by, would you believe, a professional artist, well below the age of 50. Unlike you and I, this person is dependent in their livelihood, for their family, for their career, on generating an income and a lifestyle, and they're doing it. They're a very successful artist.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting because it was just such a great perspective for me to realize what you just said then. If my royalty check this month is $1.21 instead of $1,021, whatever, that's not the issue for me.
Doesn't matter.
And
Doesn't matter to us, does it?
because
not really.
the pursuit that we have is our passion, the pursuit we want to share, we want to be heard, we want to collaborate, and it's something that we need to do.
There's a lot of life left. And I think well,
Absolutely.
hopefully, fingers crossed. And, YouTube is so much more important for young people than we think. It's where they get because you know what kids are like. They don't want to listen to the parents. They never have, never will. So they'll take somebody else's opinion over their parents. It's just history. It's always been that way. And in the music industry, I may not have, been everywhere in the music industry, but there are skill levels that I've got to offer still. So, and same with you, John, and now it's becoming more of music is becoming less and less a music industry. It's been shrunk down into less than a quarter of a 1% make money from music. It's been squashed so hard by the record companies, by everybody, really. We've got to realize that is what it's about. It's not about money making, it's about making music, and that's it.
I love it. What a great way to finish, actually, on that statement. Gavin, it's been wonderful to chat with you this evening, or my evening, your morning. You've been very generous with sharing your insights. And on your note there as well, your song is not written yet, so rock on and keep indie over 50.
Thanks, John. Lovely speaking to you too. You're a fabulous channel. I watch everything that you do on the channel, and may you forever grow.
Thank you so much.